All right, everybody, welcome. Matthew here. Thank you so much for joining. In this one, we're going to continue on the last two videos. In the first one, I showed you silver. In the second one, I showed you gold. And now we're going to put it all together and we're going to look at Bitcoin versus both. I've already told you that, as you can see here, clearly silver is far behind gold as far as the market size, 15.3 trillion in gold to about 900 billion in silver. Now we're going to throw on Bitcoin. So you can barely see it there in the green. It's a little bit bigger than silver, but not much, not much. And compared to gold, about the same order of magnitude as small. So we have, again, 15.3 trillion for gold. Bitcoin larger than silver, but only by a couple hundred billion as of end August 2024, 1.16 trillion. I want to show now the trend lines of the various money supplies. And when I say money supplies, this is the market size or available market size of each asset. For gold, this doesn't include industrial gold, which is used in dentistry and in conductivity, electronics, so on and so forth. Same with silver, a higher proportion of industrial usage. This does not include that. With Bitcoin, it is the total supply. It is true that there are a certain amount of Bitcoins that are lost and burned forever, but I'm not including those. I am including the total market cap for Bitcoin. Nonetheless, let's draw trend lines now, okay? And this is linear scale here. I'll put it on log in a second, but we have silver, all right? And at this scale with the height of gold, doesn't look like it's growing very fast. Let's put gold, all right? And this is the 50-year trend line, by the way. We see gold here, as I talked about in prior videos, goes out to 16.7 trillion by the end of the decade. And now let's look at the curve of Bitcoin. What is this curve? I've talked about this many times. This is unlike gold or silver. This is not an exponential curve. This is a power curve. Now, this is linear scale. Okay, so we'll put it on log scale in just a second, but you see the market sizes, these solid lines. You see the trend lines, which in the case of gold and silver are dotted lines. And you see the Bitcoin trend line, the solid black power curve trend line. Okay, and you see that it increases proportionately faster as Bitcoin gets larger. A couple things here. The R squared, what is that? That's basically just the goodness of fit. This is how the trend line moves around, or I should say how the valuation, okay, this 15 trillion or so in gold, the trend line itself is only 10 trillion right now. So the way that the valuation line moves around the trend line, the R squared can help us to understand sort of the goodness of fit. It's better that it moves around the trend line than it would move around a straight average. That's what the R squared tells us. It tells you that silver moves around its trend line 60% better than the average. Gold moves around its trend line 87% better than the average, and Bitcoin, the Bitcoin price, or the Bitcoin market cap, I should say, moves around the trend line 96% better than the average. Now, we can't see Bitcoin and silver that clearly. We can alleviate this by putting this scale into log linear, log on the vertical axis, linear on the horizontal axis. I'm going to do that right now. So, very interesting. Now, we can see the very, very small base that Bitcoin has, well under $1 billion here in May 2010. You get to about 10 million here in February 2011, and off we go. I'm not going to go through the whole cycle here. But look at how gold, now once you go on log scale, gold is roughly a $15 trillion asset. Silver is roughly $1 trillion asset. When you put it on log linear, whether you're looking at the movements in the valuation, all right, the total supply or the total cap of gold and silver, they become extremely rigid, straight lines, and the trend line itself becomes a straight line. That's how you know that the trend lines that I'm drawing for gold and silver are exponential, as opposed to the trend line that I'm drawing for Bitcoin. That is power. Okay, so on a log linear scale, we can see that gold, silver, exponential trend lines, the nature of Bitcoin's growth is a power trend. And so it's very interesting from this point. We can project out. That's one of the beautiful things about trend lines. We can project out. Doesn't mean that we're predicting exactly the value at any point in time, but mathematically, what is this curve showing us? Well, if we go out to, say, the end of 2025, which is possible that the next bull run could conclude for Bitcoin, we see a $3 trillion market cap. All right, gold's trend line 11.95, or roughly $12 trillion market cap, and silver $650 billion market cap. And of course, silver and gold are above their trends today. Let's just zoom in here. We see here that gold's at a $15 trillion current market valuation. All the gold in the world ever mined that's available, not in industrial usage. And so again, 5 trillion above the trend. Silver as well, a couple $100 billion above the trend. So both of them are above trend. So once we project out, it's possible that it's not as great of R squareds as it is for Bitcoin, but it's very possible that as this is a 50-year trend line, those valuations just revert back to the trend. It's possible. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's possible. Whereas Bitcoin, we can see the growth is, in this case, in this manner, much stronger, percentage-wise. It is true that the growth will asymptotically decline, the growth rate of Bitcoin, but proportional to the value, it's actually constant. And that we can see on a log-log scale, but I'm not going to show that right now to confuse the picture. The growth of the trend line for Bitcoin at the moment is 45% per year, 45% per year, whereas the growth of gold and silver, less than 2% per year, compounded. Taking a moment to remind you that this show is brought to you by Trezor, home of the original Bitcoin hardware wallet. For over 10 years now, Trezor means business in Bitcoin security and functionality. When using their wallet software Trezor Suite to connect to the Bitcoin network, you're automatically connected via Tor, protecting your identity and giving you full control of your coins in a fully open source manner, both on the software level and on the hardware level. So head on over to Trezor.io to grab your brand new Trezor Safe 5 with a secure element, as well as a ton of available accessories to back up your keys and keep your coins safe. So, simply to conclude, once you put it all together, what is the supply side of the gold market? 15 trillion, possibly reverting back to the mean or staying at the same valuation at the end of the decade of 16 trillion. What is the supply side of silver? It's about 900 billion today, a little bit ahead of trend. And if you pull that out to the end of the decade, it's still, the trend line's only showing 800 billion. Okay, and that's a 50-year trend line. And then Bitcoin. We have a much shorter lifetime, only starting at the beginning of 2009, pricing data mid-2010 here for my data. We are under trend right now for Bitcoin. Okay, let's zoom in again, just so you see Bitcoin. August 2024, these are month-end figures. The Bitcoin market cap currently 1.16 trillion. The trend line 1.79 trillion, or $1.8 trillion. Bitcoin is under trend at the moment. Although at the moment of this recording, which is late September, it's catching up. And then we take Bitcoin out to at the end of the decade here, and we can see that we are simply growing at a faster rate. Even though the growth rate is actually asymptotically declining, don't worry about that. As far as looking at this on an apples to apples comparison, Bitcoin is still growing much faster than the gold and silver markets as a supply side suggests. And interestingly, coincidentally, by the end of the decade, Bitcoin perhaps catches gold based on market cap valuations, based on market cap trend lines, market size trend lines. Bitcoin market cap projected to be at about 16 trillion by the end of the decade. Gold, 16.7 trillion. Again, when I say prediction, that is a loose, or actually it's a rigorous statistical term. I am not saying for sure I know that that's going to happen. That is simply where the data takes us to. And with a 96% R squared, this is actually better. This is a better R squared over market cap than price. So it's very interesting. And I think that we should pay attention to this. And here we can see, this is a supply side analysis of historical base money, that is gold and silver. and very possible future-based money in the world. That is Bitcoin. These are the trend lines: exponential for gold and silver, power for Bitcoin. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. Hope it helped you. Have a great day.